All right, so today we're going to cover what we call our color picture CMA tour. And I want to kind of give a little bit of a description because what happens a lot of times is realtors will come with, a printout of comps and they'll have a conversation. The problem with that is you're trying to persuade, right? You're trying to convince somebody that their home's worth a certain number. And more often than not, the seller's opinion, or at least their hope, is that it's actually worth more, right? So you're kind of beating them over the head with data. We're going to use the exact same data. We're just going to do it with a little different spin. And we're actually going to invoke some of the psychology behind persuasion. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you how we do this. And I'm going to describe what I'm doing and how I'm doing it so that you can kind of see and understand how it works. So let's share screen. Okay, so what I have on the screen is a CMA that I've done for a property that I'm going to go meet with a seller next week on. And I always want to go to any meeting with a seller, a prospective seller, planning to sign them, right? So I always bring the complete package of paperwork. I have preloaded folders here in my office. I just grab a folder and go. But I also do the CMA because if all goes well, they're going to sign a listing agreement and they're going to want to talk about list price strategy. We have a whole nother video on how to design a proper list price strategy because the list price and the market value are rarely the same number. So this video is about that process of showing somebody what their home is worth and helping them arrive at a number for a market value number so that we can then have that conversation. So the thing that you want to pay attention to and you might want to screen grab is I'm actually going to take these comps and I'm going to print a set of forms and reports that facilitate this conversation that we're going to have. So if you go down here and I've already pared down the comps to the quantity that I want. You want to have at least 4 comps in order for this to be effective. Ideally, it's 5, 6, maybe 7. I actually found 8 because I want to rely on the solds, of which there's 6, but I also want to educate my client on what the competition is. So I included a couple that have not yet closed and active and a pending. So then I click on CMA and it takes me to the wizard that's going to help me create one of those fancy CMAs. I don't want a fancy CMA. What I want are photos of the comps only, like the photo gallery report, and then the data so that I can use that information, right? So if I click on pages here, this is the list of pages out of these sections of available pages. Just screen grab this list right here. And it's going to give you what you need for this process, right? So I print those and then I bundle them. And by bundle, I mean I separate them and staple them into small groups, but I bundle them into what I'm going to call my master package, right? And the first page of the master package is the map, because sometimes you're showing comps to a seller and they're asking, where is that in relation to my house, right? So if I found their home as a previous listing, it would show up here. If it doesn't, I'm going to put a little star where their home is, right? So I'm going to be able to show them, oh yeah, this one's around the corner from you. This one is, on the other side of the freeway from you, so it's less valuable, whatever, right? We want to make sure, I actually wouldn't use that other side of the freeway comp, but you know what I mean, right? We're going to figure out which comps are the best, and then they may ask you, where are they in relation to their home? And most of the time, the sellers are very familiar with, oh yeah, that side of the neighborhood is nicer or more valuable or less valuable or whatever. And then, this package was 60 pages and I broke it into just the first 12 pages and I stapled those together. So it gives me all the details and data about the comps that I've chosen. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to note what I think the value is, what I think the as repaired value could be. And remember, I haven't been to the home yet when I'm preparing this, but I'll have a sense of what the top end of the market is for that neighborhood. And then I'll try and opine if I think it's going to be a moving concierge candidate or not, right? The other thing I do is this little box right here. If you can look in the camera on my screen, it's actually a stamp that I use. And I stamp on the paper so that I can write what's the year built, bed bath count, square footage, lot size, or other notes like, is it remodeled? Is it original? Whatever, right? So that's the subject property information. And you'll notice it's on page 2. So when I'm holding this packet of papers, they can't see what my opinion of value is yet, because I don't want to disclose that until we played this game. Then this is all the prep work, right, before I've gone there. The next thing I do is I staple the packages by house. So this house is 7118 28th. All 5 pages are of the photos of that one house, and that's the end of the 5 pages, right? So this is one 5-page bundle of photos for one specific house. I've stamped it with the information for year built, bed bath, square feet, etc. And I'll have already written on that information. This yellow line over here, this is just where I'm going to write down while we're playing the game what they're guessing these homes are worth or what they've sold for. So I put that little stamp on all 8 of these comps, you can see, and these individual packages are all stapled one house together at a time. So it might be 4 pages of photos, might be 5, it could be 2. You know, some agents are quite lazy, right? So here's a 4-pager, here's a 7-pager. So this person used most of the 40 available photos, and that's great, right? So here's the setup for the game. And I will stop sharing my screen so you can see me, and we'll come back to those images. So the psychology behind this game is that humans inherently like contests and games. It's quite the exception to find somebody that doesn't. So when we play games, we want to win, right? So what happens is you come to this conversation and the homeowner has a preconceived notion of what they think their home is worth, right? And in some instances, if you were to ask them what their home is worth, they'd actually give you a number that's higher than what they really think, because they think this is some sort of negotiation, when it's really not. We're just trying to see where they think their home is worth, right? So what happens is the consumer comes to the conversation with this hope of getting $1 million for their home, right? So this hand is their hope and aspiration for a certain number and value for their home. This hand is their desire to win the game. And this desire is quite low at the beginning because they didn't even know they were going to be playing a game, right? So they're hoping to get $1 million. They couldn't care less about winning some silly game, right? But then you put one of those bundles of photos in front of them, and they make their first guess, right? And in their first guess, they see a house. If you've ordered them correctly, you want to make sure that you put them in a sequence that will help retrain their brain, right? So the first guess usually is a home that's superior to theirs. And they're going to go, if I want $1 million, that house better have sold for 1.1 or above, right? So they're going to guess 1.1 because their hope for $1 million is still alive. And then you break the news to them. Actually, that one sold for 925. Boom. Their hope for $1 million just got injured, right? And they were wildly wrong on their guess, so their desire to be right just increased. And what happens is, as you show them numbers 2 and 3 and 4 comps, hopefully 5 or more, they get to where they're guessing correctly and they realize their home is not going to be worth $1 million. Does that make sense? Right? So you really need at least 4 comps in order for that evolution to occur. Otherwise, they're going to cling to the $1 million hope. So let me go back to the data and show you what I mean, right? So they don't really see this master package, right? They're just going to get this first set of comps. They're going to see down here that it's a similar aged home. It might have similar beds and baths. Hopefully it does. The square footage is hopefully within 20% bigger or smaller. And then on this one, as you can see just from these photos, down here, I would put the lot size and I would put that it's been thoroughly remodeled, right? Sometimes I'm writing that only the kitchen's been updated, or maybe the kitchen hasn't, but the bathrooms have, or whatever. So I sort of quantify what sort of updates the homeowner has made. This particular house, I might write 100% remodel, right? Because remember, you're now sitting in their home, and we already know it is or it isn't updated at all, or maybe it's somewhat, right? Updating is a continuum. And so homes are going to be somewhere on that continuum, and you're trying to quantify for them while they're looking at these images, whether it's 100% or it's just bedrooms and bathrooms, but nothing else, or I mean, kitchen and bathrooms, but nothing else, and whatever. And then what I do is over here, I write their guesses. If it's a husband and wife, I make them both guess. I alternate who gets to go first, because a lot of times spouses will key off of each other, and I'll go, okay, Joe, Susie's gone first every time. Now it's your turn. You guess first, and then Susie will go after you. And then I write below the line the truth. Well, this one actually sold for $925. All right. And in a shifting market like we're in, I'll also communicate when it sold, how many days on market, those sorts of things, because those are relevant, right? If this home sold in April, that's before the 200 basis point increase that happened in May of 2022. So we want to make sure we communicate that, right? Because we're going to put less weight on a home that sold during the white hot bidding war market that ended in May of 2022, right? So then we'd go through this process, and here's comp number 2, the bed, bath, square feet, amount of updating or not, and so on. What do you think it sold for? And then they will guess. I will educate them on what it actually sold for. And what you're going to find as you go through these comps is that their guesses become more and more accurate, and the gap becomes smaller and smaller. And that's what we want, right? Now, sometimes they might say, oh, I know that house. It sold for $998, $888, or whatever it was. That's all right. That's still educating their brain, right? So we go through this process, we play this game. They now have sort of gotten their brain more dialed in, right? And what we have is we have a continuum of prices, and usually that continuum also lines up with the condition, right? The more updated homes sell for more money, that sort of thing. So then what I do is I take each of those packages, right? In this case, I have 8 comps, and I lay them out on the table in the order, and I do it opposite me, right? I'm facing them. So I put the lowest one on my right, their left, up to the highest and most expensive one on my left, their right, right? So they're reading them from left to right, and they're going up in value from left to right. And then what I tell them, or I ask them, is, okay, where do you think your home fits on this continuum? And I make them physically spread the papers out and go, oh, well, mine goes in between these two, or whatever, right? And then that makes it super easy for us to go, okay, well, this one sold for $875 and this one sold for $885. So your value is in between those, right? They might say, this doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. They might say, you know what? I don't care about any of this. My house is worth $1 million. Well, then you, the realtor, have a decision to make. do I work with these people or not? Because it's not going to do you any good to list a home at $1 million when it's clearly worth under 900, right? So you might say something like, you know what? I'm probably not the right guy to help you get your home sold. And they'll be like, why is that? Well, because my system is designed to generate the absolute most return on your investment, but I'm not going to touch that number that you're hoping for. Now, if you want to wait until appreciation lifts your home closer to $1 million, we certainly would be the first firm to get you that number as we got closer to it, but that's not today. And then what I'll ask a lot of times is, why not stay? And that will really dig into their emotional why, right? They're going to say, well, we want to be with our grandkids down in Florida or whatever it is. Well, you can't be unrealistic in your pricing in an effort to have more money when you get down to Florida. The market doesn't care what your motivation is. The market cares what the value is, right? So again, that's an exception. It's a pretty rare exception because more often than not, this process, that whole getting them to be realistic and their desire to win a contest trumps their desire to get $1 million, and they become more realistic as a result of this process. So that is the color picture CMA tour process. That is how you get an overzealous seller to be more realistic. And that's how I deliver CMAs always, right? Because it's pretty unusual the seller who's realistic and grounded in, oh, my home's only worth $875,000. I recognize that. No, they're always hoping to get more money. So that's our job, is to get them more money. But we also need to have a realistic and intelligent conversation about how to price the listing so that we can maximize the sale price, right? That's a whole separate video. It's all about the 3 different numbers that we have to communicate to a seller. And that's another differentiator for us, because most realtors just think there's one number and they're not very good at identifying that one in the first place. There's actually 3. So go check out my video on the 3 numbers that you have to be able to communicate to your sellers. And that's it. Have a great day.